today.
It's live already.
Live, yeah. We're live
Yeah,
on both.
Wow.
Good evening.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. Good night.
So,
And that's
very, 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 very serious topic today.
Mm.
Very serious topic.
Mm.
In the last
Who's that? Oh, mm.
in the last 6 weeks, there's 20 odd people have been murdered. So it's a serious issue that we need to say something about. Whoever wants to listen, fine. Whoever doesn't want to listen, that's your business. But it's real. We're going to talk about it, say what we're going to say. Hopefully, as people tune in, we'll get some people to speak and say what they're saying also. Those who think that they can ignore it, you will ignore it at your peril, because it's not getting any better, and it's not going to get better easily. And that's what people have to understand. It's a real sad situation. Last week we spoke about role models and mentors, or whatever we want to call it, social media influencers and so forth. So the first thing that I want to start off by saying is about the influence of environment, the influence of your bloodline, what you see and what you hear, so to speak. So I was thinking of something in the Bible. So too bad for those who don't like the Bible. We're there again. In the Bible, there's a story of this guy Lot, who's in Sodom and Gomorrah, that place that some people don't want to hear about. But Lot was in Sodom and Gomorrah, and we know that Sodom and Gomorrah anything wholesome and good. And God said he was going to destroy. God said he was going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. So, as a result of the fact that God said he's going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, he told them, get out. So Lot and his wife and his daughters left out from Sodom and Gomorrah. And my personal belief is that the wife of Lot was a Nephilim. For those who don't know what is a Nephilim, look it up. Somebody type in Nephilim so that they know how to spell it. You go and have a look and see what Nephilim is. We have spoken about Nephilim before, so I'm not going to really explain again today anything at all about that. But I personally believe the wife of Lot was a Nephilim. So to the average person, what I mean by that is she had bad blood, right? And as a result of that, she looked back, longing to go back to where she came from. Sodom and Gomorrah was home for her. She had a real connection to that. And even though it had come to the point, it's somewhere that God said he's going to destroy, her connection was so strong that she looked back. And when she looked back, the Bible says she was turned into a pillar of salt. So now Lot had no wife all of a sudden. But he's got two adult-sized daughters. So they've gone off into the mountains. And these daughters, which also had Nephilim blood, and would have also been the victims of a perverse environment. And this is why I'm talking about this, because of the environment. Because we've got to understand that when we're talking about young men stabbing each other, in the main, not entirely, but in the main, majority of it comes because of a perverse environment, which the environment starts obviously at home, and then it's also on the streets among their peers and so forth. But it's the environment that causes them then to have the type of attitude and behavior that they have. So here we have these two daughters of Lot who said, oh, there's no men around, so we're never going to have children. So let's get our father drunk and get pregnant by him. And that's what they both went ahead and did. So here is my postulation on that particular subject. I believe that it was the perverse environment that caused them to think that that was okay. I believe that they had probably done it before. Now, that might be pretty hard for some people to swallow, but I believe that they had, because they were quite comfortable to consider such a thing.
Yeah.
I believe that they didn't think there was anything wrong with it, really.
Yeah.
And to them, it was quite normalized to do that. And this is what we also have to understand, that when people have a different view about what is right and wrong, when people have a different view about what is negative and perverse, they're not going to be the same as you. They're going to do things which are alarming and alarmist, according to you. But in their thinking, it's normal.
Yeah.
So you think it's strange and wild to carry a knife every day. They think it's normal. And they'll give you the reasoning, everybody else is doing it, so I have to do it.
Yeah.
It's those type of things.
They can't.
So, you know, two of my daughters are here, and you can ask them. If we three were the only people left on the earth, they have to die childless.
Well, yeah.
Right? The earth will finish. Humanity will be no more.
Well, if God wants it,
because first of all, I'm not
new.
getting drunk.
Yeah.
Right? So that's not a possibility. Second of all, I will stab them to death.
Could you imagine?
Third of all, they don't come from a perverse environment.
Exactly.
They have not been exposed to that kind of perversity, so they do not have that kind of depraved thinking.
Exactly.
So I put it all out there that it's because of all of that, the environmental factor that's behind it, that drives people to do these kind of things.
Yeah.
So let's begin from there. I've said enough, over to the rest. That was the introduction.
Who's gonna speak first? Why is it me every time? Get off. Well, I don't know. I was thinking that I was going to speak about, you know, society and the way society is now. We touched on it a little bit in the last live, actually, when we were speaking about, you know, role models and stuff.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, like I said in the last live, they show these things on TV and in films. Like, if you think about it, what's the most common brown people or black person film in the UK, and what is it about? Exactly, foolishness. And it's always about foolishness. There are always films about drugs, guns, stealing, killing, whatever else, just criminal activity, womanizing, all these kind of behaviors. And it's like,
and then if it's not that, then there can only be music artists,
exactly,
or, you know, a basketball player, sports,
exactly,
sports and
so
entertainment.
if imagine you're a young person, and when you're young, your mind is very susceptible to getting programmed by these things. This is how it's like you're learning how to think and process things when you're watching these things. And that's why they make, that's why you watch TV, because that's exactly what they're doing. They're programming you to think in, hence soaps, whatever they're called soaps. Soaps. They show you a scenario or situation, and then they recommend you how to react, because they show you the reaction that isn't correct, and they show you the reaction that is correct, and they make it known. This is the correct reaction, this is the wrong one. And some people you find that if they watch all of them soaps, they're off key. Something ain't right with them. You know what I mean? They're not quite normal. This is because their mindset and the way that they think has been changed or distorted or programmed in the way of what they're watching, what they're ingesting. And when these young boys who are listening to this trap music that's full of guns, drugs, that shoot, stab this person, stab that person, and then this British culture that has come around where recently now the British culture for young black and brown boys is like, oh, you have to be a bad man or you're nothing. And that's it. It's like, oh, you're a bad man or you're a geek. There's no in between. There's no nothing else. So of course, all these boys that are brought up in a certain environment, as Dad was saying, like maybe they're from what you class as or what they call the hood or whatever, the ghetto. Yeah, where there's less money, there's less activities. Then maybe their parents don't have money to put them in activities. To you know, what I mean, what else can they do but go and play on the streets with their friends?
Because even the homes are broken down anyway.
Yes.
Because a long time ago, our parents didn't have money to buy us PS4s, PS3s, but we stayed and talked to them, went to our aunties, went to our grandmas, learned from them. And
Made
that's
your
why,
own toys.
made our own toys, made our own
Playing
games.
our own games.
Out in the trees, out on the streets, we were playing shake and all, I don't know, rounders with a football made of plastic bags, you know, joined together, tied up together, banned.
The kids nowadays, they don't have no imagination.
No,
No, they don't. Because
that's what I was going to
They're
come to.
stifling their imagination in school now as well.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. That's what I was going to come to, because they come to work and even the smallest thing, they've got no proactiveness
Yeah.
whatsoever. They're just there. If you teach them, they have to go left, right. They can't think, oh, let me go right because I know when I get there, I can meander to two sides and do this. No, they just know that, and when it's finished,
That's it.
there's no option. And you're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Yeah, it's very hard, very hard. For
Yeah, it's interesting actually that you guys talk about initiative.
Yeah.
Because years ago, and it is proper enough years ago now, when I first learned to drive, there was no sat nav, there was no mobile phones, right? We had A to Z.
And what that big
Yeah, the atlas.
Yeah.
And it opens out.
Oh,
You
yeah,
know?
we go Atlas.
And if whenever it was needed,
Yeah.
you had to become really good at planning your route. Because although you could have the A to Z, you couldn't really read it while you were driving.
No.
It's not the whole.
Yeah, you have to digest
So you
where
had
to
to
get.
plan your route in your head,
Yeah.
read it from the A to Z. Then you might, if you're lucky, be able to have a quick glance when you stop at traffic lights.
Yeah.
But you'd need to be observant of which road you're on.
Yeah.
So you'd have to look at the streets, you'd have to look at the area, and then what you would do, because this was the norm, you would start to learn landmarks and
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
so that the next time
You come here like that.
you know where you're going. You know, oh yeah, I passed that building, I passed this place, you go this way. So you get almost to where you're going without having to look much at your A to Z. Then when we got into the technology of the sat nav, it was basically turn left. So you turn left. You don't know what the name of the street is that you've just turned off of, or the
Yeah.
one that you turned onto.
No.
But you've just been given an instruction, turn left. At the next roundabout, turn right.
Yeah.
And
Bam.
blindly follow
So you
that.
just do it. And I remember following the sat nav one time,
It takes you
and I
the longest.
I was in the countryside, and I almost drove into a street.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wasn't that
I
when you
was
take
following
us
it.
to school?
I was following it directly, and
I'll
I
never
almost drove into a street because that's when I didn't find what it would have only been a little diggy.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't have really done too much harm. But
Yeah.
I was like, hang on a minute. And the sat nav was telling, was if I almost, if you could argue, it's like, no, straight ahead.
Because Dad was saying this
No,
don't
because
seem
that's
right.
what it-
Remember,
But
Dad
it
was
does-
saying this doesn't seem right, and he was like,
it does do that.
but they know, so let's just follow the sat nav. So we were just following.
It
And
doesn't
do
update.
What do you know? There's all these problems. Recalculating. Make a U-turn whenever
It's
possible. And you're
changing
thinking,
that.
where?
That's cool roads and stuff. I remember
Well,
he
they're
was
not-
trying to send me through the field to
Yeah,
get to this job.
that's what they tried to do.
yeah.
They're not.
A long time ago, I used to be, known. Everyone said, Sarah knows that once she goes once, that's it. I know where I'm going. Now, because I follow the sat nav, stand
Yeah.
left,
It's difficult.
I have to go 3 or 4 times, and I'm like, oh yeah, I know the
Yeah.
route.
Because you're
Before,
listening to
just
that.
the one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what is it that we're saying? That technology
It's good at the
is
job.
good, but it's also bad because
Mhm.
it's taken away the fact of that people learning to use their initiative and think for themselves. So what we then end up having is that people are what I call sheeple.
Yep.
So they just follow the masses.
Man.
And the masses, I've got sat nav on my phone. I've got sat nav in the car, very nice one. The sat nav on my phone, I've changed it to an Indian woman's voice. So, and the one in the car, I haven't looked to see if I can change the accent yet. But it's very accurate. It's very fast. But now the problem with it is that I don't like them.
Yeah.
Because I like to read the street names and I like to look for landmarks
Yeah.
so that if for any reason something happens to the sat nav, and it
Yeah.
can do,
Your phone
even,
dies.
even in a very nice new car like mine,
Yeah. Or
you know, or your phone may die or any sort of thing. I like to be able to think for myself.
Yeah.
Now, in all of this, that's the point that I'm trying to bring across. That we have reached the point in time where there are so many technological things that influence people's thinking, mindset, attitude, and behavior.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is very negative to the point where when we're now looking at young men who are killing each other, Tamar's already mentioned a few things, and we're going to break them down one by one. And so we may even, come back to this on next week.
Yeah.
Because we're going to see how far we're going to get with it, because it is a big subject.
Yeah.
Many people may not think so, which is why many people may not come on. But I really don't care. The fact of the matter is that we've got to look at the reality of what's going on the street. And we've got to talk about it in its realest and rawest form. Because we can say, as I had said in a previous post, well, it doesn't concern me. So because it doesn't concern me, not my problem. I don't care if drug dealers are dying, they should die.
No.
That is a very stupid, asinine
Yeah.
statement.
Yeah.
It's also an evil statement.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, irrespective of whether they are related to you or not, which is half of the thing that, well, they're not related to me, so it doesn't make any difference if they die or not.
This is how selfish people
That's
are.
selfishness.
Yeah.
Well, you should have brought your children up better. Again,
So stupid.
sorry for you people who don't like certain things, but I'm going to say it as it is. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
All right? That's what it is.
That's why I wrote a status. I had to.
Because, you see, I looked at this post. I think, was it the Daily Mail, I think?
I think it was,
There was a
Daily Mail.
22-year-old drug dealer who died. And it's quite obvious he was a drug dealer just by reading the circumstances and all the rest. Roadman got killed by an ex-roadman. So that should be the end of the story, but we know it isn't.
Yeah.
Because that's all good and well. I could have written the headline and I could have wrote it like that. Roadman kills an ex-roadman. End of story. But the story doesn't end there, does it?
Yeah.
Because what about his family who are now grieving? What about the family of the murderer who may know that he's a murderer and they can't shop him in to the police, or they won't? We're going to come to the story about the police as well in a bit, because that's a big story in itself. And especially when we're talking about the dirty, stinking Metropolitan Police. And I say it like that on purpose because that's how I see them. For those who don't know, the dirty, stinking Metropolitan Police is the London Police. And they are nasty, evil, racist,
Corrupt.
and corrupt. And I'm not taking back one word of what I've said. And I can justify every word of what I've said and what I'm going to say, both from the experience of others and also from personal experience. Nasty, dirty, stinking Metropolitan Police. They are institutionally racist.
Yeah.
And that's where you have to start from with all of this. Because now what's happening on the street is a problem, but it didn't start on the street. It started somewhere else, but we've got to talk about it from the level of the street. So before we even get to start talking to the street and to the guys there and what we might think might help them and stop some of this and so on and so forth, we've got to look at where it's coming from. And we've got to talk to the other things that are outside of it before we get to even talking about that. Because there's many people who said, yeah, good, these guys are dying, they're killing each other. So what? Well, first of all, let me address people who look like me. Right? So we've got if you look at us four here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 different shades of brown.
Mhm.
There's nobody black here. I'm wearing a black hat. So let me keep putting that out there because I want to keep on educating people that we are not black, right? We are people of color. We are brown. There's already 4 different shades of brown here. So I'm speaking to people who look like us. That means that they could be African.
Mhm.
They could be Caribbean. By Caribbean, I don't mean Jamaican only, right? It's all the other islands there too. They could be South American, Central American,
Mhm.
right? They could be American.
Indian.
They could be Indian. They
Spanish.
could be Pakistani. They
Yeah.
could be Spanish or Hispanic, as they call them.
Yeah.
All of those people and more, they are brown, right? But let me tell you something about the statistics of it, because this is where we need to understand the issue. People point the finger and it's when they report these things in the news, they're being racist, and they keep talking about black people and black boys killing each other and blah 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 and black young men. Well, let me lay the facts on you, just so that you understand. Statistically, right? Statistically, and we know statistics can lie, but generally speaking, they're pretty much accurate.
Yeah.
So here's what the statistics tell us. In London, 2/3 of all the murders are from people who look like us four. And who are they killing? People who look like them. And this is basically 25 years old and under. When you look at the whole overall picture of any age, it's slightly different. But the youth crime, which is the one that is the where the pandemic is, in the youth crime, it is black on black crime. Some of you might not like to hear that because you want to sweep that under some imaginary carpet, but it'd be better that you, well, I don't even want to tell you where you should stick it, right? Because you're out of order. There's no carpet to sweep it under, so don't try.
But
Right?
it's either sweep under the carpet or good dead.
2/3 of all of those are people of color, young men killing other young men of color. So that's Africans, Caribbeans, Pakistanis, Indians, Bengalis, and so forth. Them killing each other. Nationally, the statistics are about equal, which still makes it a pandemic because, in terms of population, people of color are not on equal amounts with people of non-color, as white. Then, so therefore, it's still too many. So the fact of the matter is that whether we want to agree, admit, or accept, our people of color are killing each other at an alarming rate, as if life doesn't matter, as if life doesn't mean anything, or as if they don't understand the meaning of life. Now, those are some of the things that we have to address head on. And there's some reasons behind it, which we're going to talk about. And as I said, anybody out there who's listening, chip in with whatever you think or whatever you want to say. Refute what I'm saying if you want, with evidence. Because whatever you say, I will retort. Because I'm not just talking empty. The fact is that we are to blame for what's happening in our community. And so we must address it because we have to be the ones to stand up and begin to solve that problem.
Yeah.
And we're not going to solve it if we won't accept the reality. There was the mother of Stephen Lawrence, I think what's her name, Doreen. She said that if it were white young men who were stabbing and killing each other at the same rate as the ones of color are doing to each other, the government would be much more interested.
Yeah.
And I actually think she's correct. I think her perspective may be wrong, but what she said is correct.
Mhm.
And we need to look at the reason why that is so.
Mhm.
Because they are dying at an alarming rate. Right here in the city of Leeds, there are young men who have died who I know personally. And it's not stopping.
No, no, it's not.
And it's not as bad in Leeds as it is in London and some other places, West Midlands, like Birmingham.
Yeah.
But Leeds is kind of pretty much up there as well.
Yeah.
You know,
I'll see
Leeds
that,
and Bradford. And it's happening at an alarming rate. London is just on a different league of its own.
No, it's always
What do you
has
think
been.
about Jamaica? Oh, that is.
Yeah, I'm not even going to talk about them today.
Yeah.
Let's stick to the UK today. because
Oh, that's too much.
Jamaica is
He's on the
wide
next level.
level,
Yeah.
next, you know.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the UK for now. And you know, so if we mention, because London is always mentioned first because it's the capital,
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
but they've got to look at the reasons, you know, as to why there's so much murder and violence in London amongst these young men, and what's really going. And the number one thing, as we know, is gang warfare.
Yeah.
It used to be postcode wars. Now it's just gang.
Yeah. They don't actually care.
Because now they're not bothered so much about the postcode. If you're part of their crew, then you're part of their crew.
Yeah.
Which postcodes does come into it to an extent
Mm.
because they tend to form crews of people who they know and are familiar with.
Yeah.
But you know, there's a spiritual thing behind it. For those of us who understand spiritual matters, the territorial spirits that take control of these gangs, well, they are over a literal territory.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the postcode stuff comes from. But the gang stuff is to do basically with drug dealing and money.
Yeah.
You know, that's what you got to understand. It's to do with drug dealing and money. And even where it's happening in people who are not of color, it's mostly related to the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I spoke to a white lady the other day who most, you know, people would say she's old. She's in her 60s. So to many people, she's old.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that she wouldn't even know anything about what's going on the streets. She does have children of color to a black man who she's no longer married to.
Mm.
So and she lives, you know, out of the city in a nice bungalow. She turned around and she said to me, she mentioned the name of a large gang in Chapeltown, and she knew the gang by name. And I was like, how do you know that? She said, yeah, I know what's going on the streets. And then she turned around and mentioned someone who was owed £20, just £20 for drugs, and stabbed someone to death.
Nice.
For £20. And the reason why and this is why I'm trying to show you this. I know those of you who know me, you know, I tell things and I tell a story. Those who are not used to this, they're like, oh, it's long. Listen. She was telling me that because what she was telling me was that her friend is the mother of that person who did the stabbing.
Mm-hmm.
Now she was relying on her son as her carer.
Oh wow.
Right, and he was looking after his mum. Up to that point, she said, "Oh, how are you doing?" She said, "Oh, I'm great." You know, before the stabbing, she said, "Oh, my son really looks after me really well. You know, I don't even have to go out." And you know, remember, we're in the middle of a lockdown and a pandemic and a so-called, you know, serious virus and so forth. She said, "Oh, I don't have to go out to do any shopping, and anything. My son gets all my shopping for me. He looks after me, takes me to all my appointments, and you know, he even when I was laid up in bed, you know, my son even washed me." This is the same guy. See, that's why I wonder if I'm getting through to people with what I'm trying to show you, right? Of the overall impact. This is the same guy who, for 20 quid, stabbed somebody to death because they owed him 20 quid for. Well, they said 20 quid. It might have been more than 20 quid, to be fair, but It was small
Yeah,
money.
those, yeah.
He
there's no-
stabbed him to death. But why did he stab him to death? Because he wants to prove to the road
Yeah.
that he's a bad man.
That
Yeah, but there's
nobody
no
should
Right?
thought
ever
about
own
his
him.
mom or anything.
Are you
because now
understanding me?
he'll be locked up for many
That's
years.
right. He's going to be
Like-
locked up for many years.
Yeah, but
Um,
also his road
I think
man-
I think he got done for manslaughter
Mm.
because it wasn't an
It wasn't
intentional
intent to kill.
thing. It wasn't an intent to kill.
Mm.
But he's now left his mother, who needs a carer, and who was enjoying the care of her son, was comfortable and happy with the care of her son. And let's face the facts, he obviously had a close and good relationship with his mother.
Yeah.
Because there are many sons out there, they can't wash their mother.
Yeah.
No.
And they
You
wouldn't
are
even
And they
joking.
wouldn't even dream of trying.
They can't even cook their own baba.
They'd be like telling somebody else, "No, I can't do this. We need a carer.
Yeah,
Get
they
social
would actually
services."
call
Yeah.
social services.
You understand?
Yeah.
And he didn't want any of that for his mum. He was looking after his mother, but at the same time, he's got to show the road and other roadman that he's a bad man. So he's now killed somebody and gone to jail and left his mum struggling.
Yeah.
And then you've got idiots saying, "Ah, good for them. We don't care. He's in the right place." Is he in the right place, though?
No, he's not.
And yes, I'm not saying that he shouldn't be punished for taking somebody's life.
But it's not
But
as simple as that.
what leads up to that and what's going on in between all of that?
Mm.
Why it ends up at that position of a young man who can be that caring
Mm.
and that concerned for his mother, but then at the same time just
Mm.
take out somebody else's life. And then everyone's, well, we don't care.
Mm.
It's that convoluted confusion in the head, isn't it?
Well,
That's going
to
on.
be honest, I think everybody has been desensitized
Yeah.
extremely
By
to
these
the
movies.
death
Mm.
and the killing of people and all these things.
Yeah,
because
to them it's like
that's
it's
all they
normal.
should- Yes,
Yeah.
it's not. Oh, someone else has died,
Yeah.
or I've killed someone. Oh well, they're not connected to me.
Yeah.
I don't
they keep
care.
projecting towards these young men.
Yeah, because even when you see Top Boy,
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
All of them things,
Top Boy,
it's
the
the same.
same thing. But what did the guy do? He went because there were some rival Turkish people who were also drug dealers, but they were the big time drug dealers. And there was some little white people that they were getting their supply off. Yeah. So then what did he do? He went and killed the Turkish people. Yeah, to set a what's it called when he killed the main guy or whatever. Yeah.
To set
Mhm.
a precedent.
Yeah. And then they all backed off. And what happened then? He became the head of the thing. But the way they even showed it on the thing, you wouldn't even at first you wouldn't even be able to tell that he had killed him. It just looked like they'd shot him or something.
Yeah.
And then the next thing you see, he's burning all his clothes, burning all his gloves and everything. And they even I think they even left the car and burned the car as well, and all these kind of things. All this is doing is encouraging people. Oh yeah, it's easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just showing them what
It's
to do.
easy. All I got to do is that, and then just no one's even gonna know. You know what I mean? And that's
Yeah,
how these
because
people.
that's how they
live
think.
like that. That's how they think. Because
Yeah.
even for you, when you know a long time ago, you were sent by your mom, and you even kept her change
Mhm.
or anything like that. You've been in so much trouble,
Mhm.
and or you nicked a few quid to go and buy yourself sweets. It will be you'll be reminded about it for months and months. But then it's okay. They come out with a knife. They argued with a friend. It's £5. It's
Yeah.
5 pence. Boom.
Yeah.
There's no communication, there's no
No.
talking, there's nothing. Is
Yeah.
I will knife you and you'll be dead and you'll be off and I'll continue.
Yeah. And because
I'm
you're
still
not my
right at
family,
the end.
you're not my fam, or
Yeah.
you're not connected to me, or you're not in my gang, I don't care about your life, and your life means nothing to me. That's the mentality
Yeah.
that they've all adopted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's a
That's the
robotic
mentality
kind,
they've been
that's a
encouraged
robotic kind
to
of lifestyle that the society now wants you to live.
Yeah.
You've got no compassion, no nothing.
No,
Yeah.
Don't talk to your neighbor, don't
That's
talk
it.
to the
That's
to
what they
anybody,
want.
Self in the
don't
life
say
of-
hello to anybody, nothing. Because you
Mhm.
find the people you're walking on the road and somebody even can't smile at
Yeah,
you.
they can't
They are walking
smile
like a
now.
zombie
Well,
from
now they
planet I
can't
don't know
smile
what.
anyway.
Yeah.
They're wearing a mask.
Yeah, I know. So, but you can tell, but you can even tell with the body language, with your eyes and everything. Everybody's walking all stuff like this. It's like as if you're walking next to gorillas. Oh
But
my
you know,
God.
the thing is this, that the question, the big question, right? When we use the example that I've just used of that young man, the big question then would be, well, where does the fault start from?
Hmm.
Because even if he was convicted of manslaughter, we could say he's a killer anyway, and then we don't say he's a murderer, right? Now, so then he's somebody who can care for his mother. He loves his mother. He can do, he can do exceptionally good things for his mother. But then he's got no compassion for another human being.
Yeah.
Right? He's on the street dealing drugs, and if you don't pay up, I'll even stab you.
Yeah.
So the question then is, where did that fault begin?
Mm.
And I would put forward one or two things which really are what we need to talk about, both in terms of whoever will listen to this now or later, and even what we will continue to do as in when we begin to speak and confront people on the streets. That in 9 times out of 10 cases, the parents are to blame.
Yeah.
We spoke once on these lives about enabling mothers. And, as much as people may say whatever, oh, well, what about the dads? We'll come to that as
Yeah.
a separate part of the conversation. But this guy, for instance, loves his mum. He'll do anything for his mum. And that's the whole point. He'll do anything for his mum because clearly she has been, in her time, an enabling mother. He's now an adult. He's not a child anymore. So now things become different. They become much more convoluted and ingrained because maybe the behavior that he had when he was a youngster that could have been curbed by certain necessary means, and I'm not going to necessarily say what that should be because it can be quite different for some people depending on what they think. But had it been that when he was younger he had been under more strict discipline and control, that mindset and mentality that, to just take somebody's life indiscriminately may not have been there. That's kind of part one. Part two to that is that because he's male, as he was growing up, he would have looked for role models and mentors. And finding none in his house because his mum is there on her own. And no matter what mothers say, and I hate it like poison when I see it on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and others. I am both mother and father to my child. No, you're not. You're a mother.
Make that baby
right? And I don't need to tell you the anatomy, and physiology of why that is rubbish. But if we want to go into anatomy and physiology, we can, and that doesn't fit. And I'll give you an example. I tell you, I've always got stories for everything, but it's a nice one. There were 2 ladies who came on a training course that I was doing, and they were talking about their children. And they were both single mothers, and they both had sons, young sons. And they were talking they're at an age now. I'm trying to get them to wee in the toilet. And I said, what do you mean by wee in the toilet? So one of the ladies, she said, oh yeah, the boy goes to wee in the toilet, but he always sits down.
Of course.
And I said to her, well, what do you do when you go to the toilet?
Yeah, exactly.
She's like, oh yeah, I sit down. I said, then what do you think I do when I go to the toilet? And she's like, she was lost. I said, you don't know. I said, do you think I sit down? And she's still lost. She's still just looking at me blanks. So I said, duh, hello, is there a light bulb in there? I said, what's he say?
Make no decisions.
I don't know what that is. And I said, look, it's quite obvious that I don't sit down. And I'm like, if this young lad, little boy, whatever, I don't know what, I can't remember what age he was. I said, look, if he hasn't got anyone that's role modeling for him, I said, okay, it might sound like a simple, I said, but you're going to have to tell him. She said, oh, because they're, and then she was like saying, oh, they're just, otherwise, everything is going all over everyone. I said, of course it is. Because you've got to teach him to hold his little penis in his hand nicely, point it into the bowl, and do his business. I said, somebody has to show them that. Now that's the rawest form of role modeling I could tell you.
Mm.
But the fact is that this is the whole point, that without the role model in the home, many of these young guys will go and look elsewhere.
Mm.
And I'm not saying they're looking somewhere so that someone could show them how to pee in the toilet,
Mm.
right? But it because it's obviously it's deeper than that.
Mm.
But the point is that depending on the environment
Mm.
where they are, the role models that they find around them, well, it is what it is.
Mm.
So they go looking for a role model
Mm.
on the streets because there's none in the house.
Mm.
There's no decent man, or the only man they see coming in is somebody who's creeping in and out of the mum's bedroom.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, but some people don't want to hear this because we don't want you to talk like that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm talking like that because it's true.
Mm.
Because that's what enough women do.
Yeah.
They have a man who creeps in and out of their bedroom,
Mm.
or the children might discover him sitting downstairs,
Yeah.
having something to eat. He doesn't have any conversation with them because they're not his children and he's not introduced to them.
No.
His mum's friend, he's not their friend, and he doesn't do anything with them and all of this. And boom, and then they don't see him again, middle of the night. By the morning he's gone, they didn't see him.
Yeah.
And they only catch him creeping in and out of the house. So that's the only version of relationship that they have with that man.
Yeah.
So they go looking for a male role model stroke mentor on the street, somewhere else.
Yeah.
And whoever they find out there who looks attractive and interesting,
Mm.
that's what they're going to follow.
Yeah.
So they see somebody out there who's, driving a nice car. Man, where do you get that car? Blah, blah, blah. And on the conversation goes,
Mm.
I can show you how to do what I'm doing. You can have what I have.
Yeah.
And that's where all of these things start. Or it may be simply the fact that they're on the street, lost in space because they've got no family, they've got no connection.
Yeah.
So they make their connections on the street
Mhm.
amongst the guys who are already on the street,
Yeah.
or as they
road
use the term, on the road.
Yeah.
That's where the term road man comes from.
Yeah, but society is segregating them anyway because it
Yeah.
doesn't want to encourage them to join everyone else. They
Mm-hmm.
want them to be apart so that they can weed them out slowly by slowly, lock them up,
Well, I'm
send
coming
them up
to
to
that.
units and all
I'm
that
coming to
because
that.
that's what it's all about.
I'm coming to that.
Yeah.
I'm coming to that because this is the problem that we're talking about. Somebody now, obviously, we're talking about many who are coming into young adulthood and they're already adults. It's more difficult to control at that stage. But now, when they're youngsters and they maybe didn't have any positive role models, male role models in the home, and they've gone looking for them on the streets, that's part one.
Yeah.
Part two, now they're going to school and they're having problems in school.
Yep.
And so they put them out of school.
Yeah, because
then they
teachers don't
kick
even
them
know
out.
how to talk to children. All they know how to talk to children is go for correction. And even when they go for the correction, some of them even have got no clue why they're in the correction.
Yeah.
Because the teacher doesn't want to even talk to them in a normal way, the way your mom would sit down and say to you, when you do
What's
this,
going on?
and this is what happens, and why are you doing this? And you don't behave like this towards adults or even to your fellow friends. No, you go to correction.
Yeah.
Nothing. And they're there laughing with their friends, and then they're off.
Well, this is the
So,
thing.
what's being
When I
corrected?
was at school- When I was at school, this was what was always happening to me.
Yeah.
Always, your name's on the board now. I'm not even doing nothing. I'm just there. I'm just doing my work.
You know how many
Because
times
they
you just
could
look
never
up and all of a
believe.
sudden your name is there?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you started me. And it was because they could never believe or accept that I could talk and do my work.
Yes.
Perfectly
Yeah.
fine.
It's
And
exactly
even
that.
sometimes they would be like, you're going on the book because you haven't done your work. I'd be like, really? Check the book then. Because I'm already finished. That's why I'm talking.
Don't you
Yeah?
remember they used to
Get
in
some
primary
harder
school
work
that
on.
Yeah.
But they don't
used to sit
care.
at the front with the teacher.
No.
Yeah.
And because, no, you're not allowed to have any conversation during class.
I've been there, done that.
But what are
Yeah.
you? Well, if I finish the work, then
Exactly.
why can't I?
Yeah,
How do
because
you know
because-
what I'm
Because
talking
what
about?
they say is that
You're
distracting
distracting others. That's what they chat.
distracting others, and even
Then give
sometimes
me more work or
in
make the
class,
work harder.
when I finish work class and I was talking to others, I was actually helping them.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what was
Yeah.
going on with
You know,
me.
And
'Cause
that
they're
was-
asking
that-
you-
and that was also a problem.
Yeah.
How you answer
You know,
what they
yes,
answer.
you know, in Africa, your aunt will talk to you, your uncle will talk to you, your grandma will talk to you. Here, children, you're even trying to tell them something that will educate them. You're not my mom, don't tell me what to do.
And they don't listen to the mom anyway.
Yes, and I'm thinking,
Yeah.
you're looking at someone and you're thinking, exactly how
At
old
least
are
if they
you?
listen
And
to
they're
the
like,
mom, they could
"Oh."
say
Well,
that.
the thing is, because I think when you see primary school and high school, right, they're two different. What's the word? Teachers act in two different ways in primary school and high school. In primary school, unless you are seriously a problem child, like I'm talking bad. Yeah, they don't actually really tend to treat you too bad. They might do a little few things where they send you out, because I had a few of those things. But really, they're quite nice to you when they speak to you and they say, "Oh, what's going on? Are you all right?" They're more supportive of your emotions and your thoughts. When you get to high school, they're get out! And all this kind of crazy behavior. You can't even talk. Yeah, they stop seeing you as students. Exactly, they see you as these
see you as
these
a threat.
rank
Yeah.
adults,
Yeah.
rank young
Yeah.
adults.
And then they
Let
start.
go
you-
away.
and the teachers, they're into the stereotypes as well.
Yeah,
they
are,
They
they are,
They
yeah.
make the assumption already because you're brown, so you're going to be
Yeah,
aggressive.
you're gonna be
Oh,
aggressive.
yeah.
You're gonna be a
Rude or-
problem.
Yeah.
And
You're
that's
talking
where
loud
conversation I
because
made.
you're passionate about something. Oh,
Yeah.
you're shouting and oh,
Yeah.
you're carrying on. And
That's
blah,
where
blah,
it's
blah.
at.
Yeah, because that was always the thing. Oh, you're too loud. You're doing this and you're doing that. I remember one time, right? It was the teacher, right? I can't remember this. Me and this teacher were like, we were always battling against each other. I don't know what his problem was with me. I don't know if he was threatened by me or what. I don't know what his issue was, but every minute, any little thing I did, it was a problem. And this day, I think both of us, we weren't in a good mood. Yeah, and the teacher was saying, "Yeah, guys, today it's going to be a very long and boring lesson. I'm not going to pretend, we've got a lot of reading to do because this was in history." So then I said, "Oh," like that, and I opened my book to start writing the thing. It's like, "Right, down now! I've had enough of you! You're so rude!" and all of this. And I'm like, thinking, who's he talking to? So obviously I'm like, looking around, who's he looking at? No, he's looking at me. So I'm like, "Are you talking to me?" Then he's like, "Yes, get out now." So I'm like, so I just go outside because I'm like, whatever. I can't even be bothered arguing today. So I just went outside and I just sat down. And then along comes the vice principal, and I'm thinking, because she always has to have a conversation. Like, "Oh, young lady, what's going on? Why are you out here?" And I'm like, "Oh, because I breathed." And then the teacher kicked me out. "Oh, well, it can't be just that. You must
But
have
it
done
was that.
something else." And I said, "No." And I explained to her the situation. And then she went inside and spoke to the teacher. And then suddenly, I was allowed to come back in. But now I had to sit at the front where his desk was. So my desk and his desk are joined.
Yes, that's what they did to me. That's what they
Oh,
did
so
to me.
you can hear you breathing.
Yeah.
Oh, you sound like a pig.
For them type of lessons, I just would stop going
Yeah.
because you're gonna kick me out anyway. and
Yeah,
then
but that's
some-
what ends up
you know.
happening a lot of the time because people don't want to. Now you wait till Freddie's comment says, "Tamar, did you ever get this one from a teacher? Tamar, staff room now. You wait till I speak to your dad, or you are setting a bad example to the class."
Yeah, I got that one.
Then the teacher will turn to some of his favorite pupils and say, "Tracy, let's sell now." Exactly.
Yes,
Exactly, Freddie. You
Yeah.
already
That
know.
happened, I think it's happened to all of us.
Yeah.
All of us.
Literally every single
No,
one of us.
I would like to say, and I mean, Freddie, we're in the same era. In terms of schooling and age and so forth. You can tell me if you think this is the case. I think for young ladies, when they were in school, although they went through some of the same thing as we young men of colour did, we young men probably didn't handle it as well.
Definitely. Yeah.
And I think with the young men of colour, I think it was a bit more relentless. When I say was, I don't think it's changed much because I think
No.
it's still there now.
Yeah.
is.
still
And
relentless.
I think
100%.
one of the ways that it exhibits itself these days, that they kind of streamline people, because there are places where parents fight really hard to get their children into very good schools. What sort of we understand to be a very good school, because otherwise they streamline children into particular schools where they do actually put the worst teachers.
Yeah.
They're putting people there who really have extremely low people skills.
Yeah.
They may know the subject, but it's as though they hate children.
Yeah.
So they love their subject, but they don't love the children.
Mhm.
So there's no rapport,
Yeah.
between the teacher and the child. So as far as they're concerned, look, you're here to learn that lesson. But actually, when children go to school, they're there for more than just learning that lesson.
Yeah.
It's a development of life.
Yeah.
Or it should have been. And they spend an awful lot of time,
It's a big stage.
a big chunk of their life, when they're young, is spent in school. And if that chunk of life is dealt with very negatively, it can have very long-lasting effects.
For real.
So you end up then having young men who get excluded from school, and it usually all happens around the same age, mid-teens. So around 13,
9,
14,
yep.
that sort of age group. Get out, get out, get out, get out.
Yeah.
It's like a song. So they're all out, and they're all now got to a point where they've said, look, we've dealt with this for, X amount of years. These teachers have been treating us this way, with their sort of racist mentality, with their classist mentality.
Yeah.
Because some of them, it's a case of, well, you come from a deprived area. I don't care what
They don't
colour
care
you are, but
you're white or
you're
black.
below me because you're a bit poor.
Yeah, that's them
Yeah,
posh ones. Yeah.
We're not interested in you, and you're just, well, what are you going to do with your life anyway?
Yeah.
This kind of thing. And so these young men get to a point where they're like, well, who cares?
Yeah. I don't care what you
So
have to
none
say
of these
anymore.
people are my friends. There's nobody I can lean on. There's no teacher I can go to and speak about life and all of this type of thing. There's nobody they trust.
Yeah.
So they then begin to trust each other.
Yeah.
But now we got to understand that, you bring a group of people together who are already experience negativity in life, who think negatively, who have been told that they have a negative attitude, even if they don't. Not long before they actually will have a negative attitude.
Yeah.
They'll behave negatively and they'll think negatively because it's what they've been told.
Yeah.
And it's what they see and it's what they experience. Now that then turns into, well, they've already said that we're not going to get good jobs, we're not going to get good grades. How are we going to get good grades when we've not had good schooling?
Yeah.
We've not stayed in school because they didn't allow us to.
Yeah.
They've decided that we were a problem, that we
Yeah.
were an issue.
It's like a
Now we are on the road. Well, on the road, they don't rule us. Because this is what you see where the mentality comes from. I'm a guy on the road, I'm a man on the road, I rule on the road. You see? Go on, read it.
You do get the odd amazing teacher from time to time. Shout out to Mr. Howard, who made me school captain even after I got the book thrown at me by another teacher. Those teachers are rare though. Yeah.
For real. They
But
are
you
rare.
are so, the children here are so lucky. They should have been in Africa, where you are told to dig a grave so that when you laid in it, you could fit crossways that way. And when you stood, the teacher didn't see you. So tell me how long you'll be digging that, because you have to dig it on your own. So the whole 3 months of your time, all you're doing is digging the grave.
In the grave, yeah.
Counting leaves from a tree. I know foolishness of wiping all the whole pavements of the whole school, and tell me if it's a high school, how many pavements are you cleaning?
And those Kenyan people, especially the young men who went through that, what do they turn out?
Yeah, they're horrific.
Exactly, they're horrific.
Yeah.
So you see
all
this negative on top of negative on
negative
top of
reinforcement
doesn't bring anything good.
That's exactly
so now these guys end up on the street and now they've already been pushed out and ostracized. So they pulled each other together.
Yeah.
So they form a
We'll
group,
be our
and then of
we'll
course
be our
there are
support.
some older guys who are already out there watching this,
Yeah.
and they're like, "You guys come here, we will look after you.
Yeah.
We'll show you how to survive
Yeah.
on the road."
Yeah.
And this is where it begins.
Yeah.
Now the problem, and this is what I want to bring across, the problem here still when they're younger is the parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Problem still is the parents.
Yeah. Because if the dad isn't there, the dad
And,
is,
or if the dad isn't given opportunity.
yeah. Yeah. Because that can
I
happen
will
as well.
speak as a responsible father, and I'm going to tell the absolute truth. My youngest son is in prison for drug dealing and for carrying knives. But here's the interesting thing. Thank God, I say thank God, but those who know, they know. If you don't understand, it doesn't make sense. What they found on him at the time, when they found the so-called knife on him, was pure foolishness. If I show you some of what I took off him, you will faint. You wouldn't even be able to believe the caliber of weapons that I took from my own child. Now there's two things to this. This here, my wife, is not his mother. And when he was of an age, when I spoke to his mother and said, "This boy is a drug dealer," she told me, "No, he's not." Because he's her spoiled baby boy. He can't be wrong because he's her baby boy. But her baby boy was a drug dealer, part of a gang at a young age. And I knew, and I was trying to intervene, and I wasn't allowed to. Because mummy was sandwiching her baby and allowing him to still be doing nonsense on the street that I couldn't catch him.
Because she didn't know.
She didn't believe it.
Yeah.
She didn't believe it till when it came to a point where now, obviously, as he got older, things began to show up, and she began to discover things, scales in his bedroom, and you know, weed bags, and so on and so forth, and the disrespect that was coming out from him now towards her as his mother.
Yeah.
And you know, and I did my best. You know, if you want to know what I did, I'll tell you, because I got nothing to hide. I brought him here, I punched him up 1 or 2 times when necessary. I'm not telling other people that they necessarily need to do that, but I know for him it straightened him a bit.
You definitely need a punch.
He would have been far worse.
He's one of them you do need to
that
punch.
if I hadn't done that. Now some people will be like, "Whoa," but well, that's okay.
Yeah.
You do what you have to do. I did what I had to do.
Well, we already said
And
some
I
children.
know that at that particular time he needed to feel my hands.
Yeah.
So I made sure that he did. You know, and the thing is this, that still, because he knew that he had an area where there was some enablement, he carried on and on and on until it got too bad that he got caught by police, and there he is now serving a prison sentence.
Yeah, because if you ask him now, he doesn't believe that he's actually in prison because he thought he was invincible
Oh,
to
don't
this.
even get
Hey,
me
I'm not going to
started.
get caught.
Listen,
I'm this,
I used
I'm
to
that, and I
speak to him
I
every
used,
week.
I used to ask
That's
him,
not even
which
exaggeration.
I have been driving for 11 years now. There's not even one day I've been stopped by police, even once. He's been stopped by police twice a week. And I said, you think it is normal for police to stop you twice a week without fail? And you don't think there's nothing going on?
No, because remember they're not watching him. They're not looking at what he's doing and all this rubbish.
Yeah.
I told him from a long time, before he even went to court the first time, I told him, police are watching you, and they're watching where you're driving your car, and they're watching everything you and your little friends are doing.
Yeah.
Because one time we went to pick up his friend, right? This What? And funny enough, this friend is in jail as well, along with him. We went to pick up this friend because this was at the beginning of lockdown, because the friend was coming over, just to have some dinner and relax and just to chill out. So we went to go pick him up because he lived in a different area. And when we went there, we was waiting outside because he was taking long to get his things together. And some car just coming up the road. So I said, what car is this? Yeah, just slowly cruising by. Then it's gone round up there. Then somehow there's some next one that's looking shady again. But now this one's coming down. Yeah. So I was just looking. I said, nah. And from that day, I said to him, I said, they're watching. I said, they're following and they're watching. I said, that was them. Nah, they're not watching.
Yeah, because you couldn't believe it.
Yep.
You couldn't believe
No,
it.
you didn't
And
believe
you
it.
know why also? Because you didn't really have the mindset of the road.
Yeah.
But we're going to come to that. Just read for me what Freddie's said.
It says, John, my parents are from Ghana, but me and my 5 brothers were all born in Nottingham. So when I went to Ghana to sing and teach in 2001, I almost fainted when I witnessed over 1,000 kids walk into the Accra International Centre in pure silence. Basically, those teachers don't ramp because those kids are told that they are the next world leaders from day one. Oh, and if their parents found out they offended the teacher, well,
See?
Yes, exactly.
The policeman.
Exactly. We know what's coming.
Yeah.
And I really do believe that this is what we've lost.
Yes.
We've lost the discipline.
Yeah.
And because we lost the discipline from a younger age,
Yeah.
as these young lads go older and older, it becomes a problem. Because I can speak about my own son, as I have been, that because when he's with his mother, the discipline wasn't there. So he's punching holes in doors, and I told him, come to my house and please punch a hole in any door you like.
I never would.
I told him straight.
Wouldn't even try.
I said, please come to my house tomorrow. Punch a
I
hole in
remember that.
any door you like.
He did say tomorrow.
I told him, I said, tomorrow,
Come tomorrow.
punch a hole in any door you like. Because I know that you can't leave this house after you've done that. So you please come and do that. And he wouldn't do that. But then he's punching holes in his mother's door and all this type of thing. And then,
I was fine.
there are things that I'm not being told about that he's doing. And it's all ended up with him going and now being imprisoned. And why am I saying all this? I'm not saying it with glee because it's my child, it's my son. I love my son. And, I am a Christian. I'm a praying man. And I honestly believe that God is going to use him in an exceptional manner for the sake of other young people who are on the road right now.
Yes.
Because he's had that life experience. And, people don't have any clue what, some of us go through. But I'm telling you, let me show you.
Oh, Freddie said,
I want to find.
thanks for your
Sorry, go on.
honesty, and you basically have set the standard for your
Give us up
household.
on looking for.
I think I got them somewhere. Can't remember.
If I can find those weapons.
Yeah.
Oh,
I need you to find them. I think you might find them faster than me.
Not with your 10,000 people.
She got everything on there.
Let me try and find it.
I think I sent it to you.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
But just, the conversation
Yeah.
isn't helping. I'm just trying to look. So let me just look. And, you see, the problem is this, that we've got a few different things going on at the same time, because we've got to consider children and young people as they're growing up, and they're at a point where we may still be able to control them and pull them back from the streets. And then we've also got to consider those who are past that point and where we now can't do anything. So here we are.
To show Facebook.
Facebook, if you can see.
Yeah. Wait.
you have to turn it.
Vietnam. Wow.
Yeah. Now you can see. Yeah, these are what I took from my boy.
Yeah, they can see.
YouTube. That's one.
I was hearing talking.
Yeah, that's better like that.
Yeah. This is what I took
YouTube definitely saw though. It's closer up.
from my son, my own child. This is what I took from him. Yeah. Facebook, YouTube.
Yeah.
Okay. Just so you understand. Now my point is this: that I'm not, and probably if he's here, he'd probably be like, oh, Dad. But well, they know me. I speak the truth, and even he knows that it's. Of course, we've despaired because we're at the point of saying, well, my children, those two children, the youngest two, this one here and him, they've grown up like prince and princess. They've been spoiled. And they've been well looked after. Right? Because this is where some of the argument
Mostly bad.
becomes complicated and people don't understand the reality of the road. Because my son, none of this had to do with deprivation. Oh, it's because they come from poor. He didn't come from a poor background. Scratch that.
No.
He didn't come from a poor background whatsoever.
Go and ask.
I remember when they were babies and they were driving Tamar's Barbie Jeep. Right, where they were in the hood. None of those kids had ever seen any kids driving a Jeep on their own before in their life. Tamar and Zakai are driving the Jeep. Zakai, I don't know what age he was. Just a little peanut.
3.
And he's busy telling everybody, go away. Because they're busy driving this little Jeep. And thank God I have energy. Poor dad is running behind while they're zooming along.
Yeah, because when the battery was full, boy, that thing
It
was
could go
fast.
fast.
You be like,
Especially if it was going downhill. Go away.
yeah, we used to be there.
And I'm running behind it. So they were not.
No.
They were not. Zakai had a ginormous rocking horse. It was as big as a real horse.
The whole way, didn't it?
I mean, those are just examples. But what I'm trying to say is that deprivation and lack of parenting and so forth. No,
Not the only reason.
it's not the only reason. But his issues came from two major things, and this is what we've got to understand. And that's why I said that this may take us even another week to really
definitely.
kind of talk into this, in depth.
We just got to the beginning.
Exactly. His came from schooling, from the way that he was treated by teachers right throughout school.
Yeah, from the very beginning.
From the beginning of school until the time when he actually said he's had enough.
Yeah.
And that was at about 14.
Yeah.
School was a serious problem for him. And also, his peers on the street, the roadman, so to speak, who he then began to see as his family, his big brothers, this is the problem. And, quite a few of those big brothers of his are now dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're either dead or in prison.
Yeah.
Yeah, but quite a few of them are dead. Been murdered.
Yeah.
Shot. So this is what you've got to understand. And I can use him as a good example because it's close to home, but it's a reality that we see. But one of his best friends has grown up with no father figure, social deprivation, parents, one parent in the house, being sent out to rob other people, to get money to get for their bits and pieces, ended up dealing drugs. My son didn't have to follow that same course, but the fact is that he and that person were hands and gloves.
Brothers.
They are literally, they're like brothers. So they followed the same path. And now this is what parents have to understand, and we can't deny the realities of what we see, because there are too many parents that are seeing certain signs with their young people, particularly their son, and they're ignoring it.
Oh no, it must be something else.
No, it's
No,
not that. My son
until you
wouldn't
know
do
it's
that.
not that. Why
You
are you
know?
not checking that it's not that?
They're
My
enabling.
son has no job, but he's got plenty of money.
So
Where's the
And
money
you're
coming
not
from?
questioning where the money's coming
Yeah.
from, or he's buying gifts for mum, or gifts for his sister, or gifts. You're not questioning where the money's coming from, but he's not got any meaningful job.
Yeah.
He's maybe never done a day's work in his life, or done 2 or 3 days of labouring or something, but he's got loads of money. Bought himself a new car, new motorbike, or whatever, and you're not questioning it. You're not looking deeper into what's going on. You're not trying to see how to push and steer this young man into some kind of vocational training of some description. You know, so it becomes an issue, and that's, like I said, this is only part of it. There's a lot to it than this, but before we even start talking about what we're going to talk about to them out there, what is going on inside with the real family? Because for them, family is not just those who are out there, you know, as mum and dad and brother and sister, but their family is those who are on the road.
Yeah, them
You
as
know?
well.
And they hold an allegiance to them, which is as serious and as strong, and in some cases stronger than the ones in their household. So, you know, this is where the reality is. Now, my thing is this, that when so many young people are killing each other, we've got to understand what it's related to. And the majority of it is related to gang warfare, drug dealing, and, you know, postcode turf war, whatever you want to call it. Most of it is related around that, and literally nothing else. So when we look at that, and we know that that's what it's related to, then we have to then begin to ask, well, how are we going to even address that? What are we going to do? What are we going to say? And, you know, like I said, I decided that to even talk about this today, or begin to talk about it today. And I don't know that we'll talk for much longer, because for me it's a very heavy subject. I said we begin to talk about it today because it weighed heavily on my heart, reading about these so many people in the space of a very short space of time who had been murdered in London. But you see, what made me then begin to think about it was just, you know, I think I spoke about this on the last live. Was about last year. Was it last year or year before now? In the carnival setting.
Year before now, isn't it?
Yeah, year before. When this lad, and I know the lad who did the murder, stabbed another young lad to death. And there's another one who was involved in it as well, who was complicit.
So gone.
And so they've both gone to jail for many years.
Yeah.
They're going to be like
Grown men.
proper old enough.
Getting to middle age.
Middle-aged men.
Yeah.
By the time they come out, if they let them out at that point.
Yeah.
Just a waste, and all because of, you know,
Stupidness. Yeah.
man is bad man on the road, and roadman must show the next roadman that I'm a bad man.
Thanks.
But it's
You
all
know?
because of what they're getting.
Because when I put hand and then what? Which bad man are you showing anybody?
Exactly.
But-
You're not showing no one that.
But you see, exactly. But you see, what we've got to look at is that where is this being fed from?
Yeah.
You know, and
Many
okay,
sources.
there are many sources, but we want to start stepping down on all of them, or pointing them out, if you like.
Yeah.
There are many sources that need to be spoken about, and there are many areas where there is a lack that needs to also be spoken about. And okay, I'm maybe, you know, on my own to a certain extent, but there's myself, my wife, and my children. That makes at least 4 of us.
Yeah.
That we can do our little bit where we can. When Zakai comes out, he'll be doing his bit as well. For real. But here's the thing: there are already. Let's talk about the black churches,
No,
because
well, in Leeds,
this.
in general.
Well, the thing is this: that the issue predominantly is a problem in the black community.
Yeah.
It is young men below the age of 25 who are killing each other across the country at an alarming rate.
Yep.
And the ones who are doing it and the ones who are dying, 25 and below, and a seriously alarming rate. Stabbings, shootings, and so forth. Now, the thing is that for the Christians, and I'm only speaking this as one of the areas, and like I said, this is a heavy subject, so we'll probably, I think we'll return to it next week.
Yeah, I think it's better to do that.
But I just want to say this, and now I'm not really going to say too much more, to be fair. SPAC Nation in London, mainly, they're not only in London, but they've had a lot of negative press because a lot of negative things have come out from that organization.
Anyway.
In terms of the behavior of some of the membership, in terms of the lack of discipline from the main leader,
Yeah.
which again, if you listen to, there's a pattern to this as well.
Yeah.
And what they're actually trying to achieve. But having said that, the real issue is that SPAC Nation had begun to do something that most near everybody else has left alone.
No one else was doing.
Nobody else is doing, and this is where the problem is. Because let's say that Pastor Toby Adeboyege, I said that's how you say it, I think it's something like that. He decided that he's found a niche.
Yeah.
Right? Now, I've listened to him many times, and he's an astute guy. He knows how to speak. But I would say that to an extent, he's more of a salesman than a preacher, more of a life coach.
Yeah,
than a pastor.
that's what I think as well. Yeah.
Now, that's not really necessarily a problem, but maybe then he should have, because he has a brand.
Yeah.
And if you have a brand, then that means you're selling something, and that's, you have an image and so forth. And he speaks very much about image and brand.
Yeah.
So he's a salesman and a life coach. Nothing wrong with that, but then don't put yourself forward as a church and as a ministry.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that he doesn't have any ability to minister or that he doesn't have any compassion, but his main objective is money.
Yeah.
The problem with that is that because he is taking people off the road, male and female, because we talked a lot about the males, because the males are the ones who are killing each other mainly. But there's plenty of females out there who are part of gangs as well. And they're aiding the killing.
Yeah.
Because quite often, when these guys get killed, they've been lured by girls into a situation or into a setting that has set them up for them to be murdered.
Yeah.
Or the girls have told them, come to my yard, for Netflix and chill. Right? And they've gone there for Netflix and chill, and they've been chilled to death. So,
It's not funny, but I'm killing you.
Chilled to death.
But it's the truth. Yeah, because that's literally, you know how many people. I literally, because the thing is with me is when I see a post on something, I always read the comments.
Yeah,
I go
I do.
straight to the comments because I need to see what people are thinking. What's their mindset when they're looking at this video, picture, whatever. And there was a situation where, because I follow a few accounts on Instagram that are what they call hood accounts and all this rubbish. But it's just like, you know, people that are in those areas, that live in those areas, and the news that's going on. So there was one situation where a guy had been killed, exactly like what Dad said. Some female had lured him to the area to say, "Oh, come and meet me," and then she let all these boys, and they all stabbed him to death. Right. So then I'm reading the comments now, and there's many boys in them comments saying, "Yeah, this is why no female will I be going to anywhere they're suggesting, blah blah blah, because they can't be trusted and all of this." So people have already decided, you know, the females in these areas are untrustworthy. Yeah, yeah, exactly. They're Delilahs. Yeah,
Delilah.
yeah.
You
It
see?
is, isn't it?
And
And
this
it's
is the same
carrying on
thing. This is the
in a
spirit of
different
Delilah.
time now, isn't
Now,
it?
I really do want to address, you know, some things in the church, but I just, you know, like I said, this is heavy.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
very
So
heavy.
I don't want to even get into that today. I'm gonna, you know, we're gonna revisit this. We're gonna stop, you know, shortly,
Yeah,
and we're gonna come back to this next week
Yeah.
it's very draining, isn't it?
because it is
It is.
draining. You know, I've shared a lot of personal information, heavy stuff,
Yeah,
and you know, and it's very sad.
yeah, it
You know,
is.
I thank God that my son is still alive.
Yeah.
For real.
And you know, I've just given you just a little minor
Yeah.
snapshot of certain things.
Mm.
But you know, let me tell you that I remember a couple of years ago, we went to a function, and in Manchester,
Mm.
and this was family. So, but there were also some other people there who were like friends of our family and so forth. So my son was there and got into a little bit of a verbal altercation with a certain man. So the man was now saying, "Yo, that youth needs to mind himself." And I said, "No,
You need to mind yours.
you need to mind yourself." What do you mean? He's just a youth. That
Exactly.
youth needs to mind himself. And I said, "You don't know that youth.
Mm.
You don't know what he's into.
Yeah,
You don't know who he knows
Mhm.
or who he rolls with.
exactly.
I do." And I said, "I'm not saying this in, you know, to be on anybody's side, but this is what I'm trying to say, that people have to get in the real world. This is my own child, but I'm warning somebody else at that time. You think you know what you're saying, but you don't know him. You don't know who he rolls with, and you don't know what can happen.
Yeah.
So the best thing that you can do is be the bigger man, because you are a big man. This is a man who's older than me. So I told him,
Exactly.
you look at him as a youth, you advise him what you need to advise him, drop it and go on your way."
Yeah.
Right? I said, because you do not know what you're talking about,
Yeah.
and I can guarantee you will come off the worst.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Now, some would say, "Oh, you're saying that because your son is a bad man."
Yeah.
Well, it's not really about that.
Missing the point. If
You're
you
missing the point if that's the only bit that you're looking at. My point is that I know the reality of what these guys have done, will do, and have been doing.
Yep.
There are people out there who are still walking around like this.
Yeah.
For real.
Oh, is that what happened?
And their son was there last night.
You know, and they know, and their youth was there. I don't pretend about where my young man has come from, or who he's involved in, or what they're involved with, I should say, or what they're capable of. But what I'm saying is that reality is reality, and we have got to deal with this on its reals.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're dying on the streets, and there are too many people who are saying nothing and doing nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
they think it's all right to not care.
you know,
And
if-
oh,
yeah,
honestly,
you know, or to just say, let them die. They're gang members, let them die.
Oh, literally, the
Listen.
comments disgusting.
It doesn't even work like that. Let me tell you, 2 years ago, I went to a funeral of a guy who was a member of a gang who was executed by another gang. He was shot through the brain. right? So let me give it to you nice and graphic so you can understand.
Mhm.
Right? They went right to he didn't even live in the hood.
No.
No,
Right?
we didn't.
He moved out and was living elsewhere. But now here's the thing. I mean, you can look this up, and probably if I give you the details, you can find the information yourself. I'm not going to tell you names or anything. But basically, what happened? These are all drug dealers, rival gangs. They've been doing their thing for many years, some of them, and they're still not even old.
Mhm.
We're talking somebody who's in his 20s, but he's been doing this for like 10 years already.
Mhm.
So that just goes to show you. So he's like feeling like he's a bad man in his gang and his group, or even within the city because he's made a bit of money till he's even got his own place outside of the area.
Yeah.
Got a nice car and etc. Child, you know, living the so-called dream life, but still doing rubbish.
Mm.
So they've got into beef with the next gang on the road. So they've gone looking for certain man in that group at a nightclub and clapped them up on the road. And I mean badly. And almost, well, he damaged anyway one of the guys in the gang with an axe. So as a result of that, because this is what I'm saying about the whole mentality of the thing and how things are, they have now turned around and said, we have to retaliate.
Mm.
And they've also said that that one has to lose his life.
Yeah.
So he now comes back into the hood. And he's gone and staying at his mother's place. Right in the middle of everything. Because now it's like he's brazen. So this is the part of the problem. And now also stupid mother is not advising her son, excuse me, you are a gangster. Right? You need to get out from here and go away.
Yeah.
No, she's harboring this gangster at her yard.
Like
So
they
they come finding out, a lookout comes, yeah, he's there.
Yeah.
They come knocking on the front door. That's how rank they are. On the front door of the mother's house.
Yeah.
Open the door, out comes, I almost said his name. Out comes the youth, blam! Straight through his brain. Dead. Dead. Now here's the interesting thing. At the funeral, everybody's there.
Yeah.
And when I say everybody, I mean everybody.
Sides.
All sides
Yeah, because they're all connected.
came to the funeral.
Because there's family.
Yeah,
Because there's family
family.
connections. So you've got, and you could see where they sat and how they sat.
Yeah, they all.
And how they angled themselves. So you got certain man over one side of the, and church was rammed. When I tell you rammed, I mean rammed. And you got certain man over one side, you got certain man who went and sat up in the balcony so that they could look down on everybody else. A certain man are standing near the door.
So they can get cut.
Right? And they're not coming inside properly, they're standing near the door. And that's how it was set. Right? And even now when everybody's come out and they're coming out with the box and all of this, everybody, you can see them sectioned off. And it looked wild because you could just feel the spirit of the whole thing. Right? But everybody is there. Now the problem is this, that even in that service, first off, the pastor who spoke might as well have sat down and just sang them a song. He wasn't telling them one word of sense.
Yeah.
They just do
There
the
was no,
service.
I despaired. That's why I told you I can't keep this up for much longer. I despaired. There were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of youth there.
Yeah.
And I could see from what they were wearing, listen to me, from what they were wearing and how they were positioned, enough man was carrying.
Of course.
Holy for them were carrying. There was no challenge to the streets. And furthermore, just to prove the point that even the police know, because the police were there. The police were outside on the road.
Remember you said there was them ones further away as well.
Yeah.
Did I do?
And then the
That's
play
right.
background at the
Yeah,
cemeteries
yeah.
and that as well.
There were some plainclothes one, and there were uniformed police on the main road.
Yeah.
So they know.
Yeah.
And there was no challenge whatsoever to these guys. Then the mother of the young man who was murdered comes up, the same rubbish. No, don't know what happened. I'm thinking, you liar. You
Yeah.
know exactly.
Yeah.
Because you know who your son was. You know what he was into.
That's
you
what I
know the
said.
attitude, the behavior. You know what he did just a couple of weeks before.
Yeah.
No, everything is just, we don't know. His family coming up the same thing. He was a nice guy. He wasn't troublesome. Really? He was
was very
vicious, vile,
troublesome.
and nasty.
Yeah.
Speak the truth.
Right?
Yeah.
And this is what I'm saying. There was no challenge.
Yeah, to the one
You
who
know,
was still alive.
The truth is
And
the good and the bad.
we've got to change this narrative.
Mhm.
We've got to change the narrative. The last thing I'm going to say is that I know for us in our community, as in people who look like me, we don't like the police because we know they don't like us.
Yeah.
And they can say all they want. I have a niece who's a policewoman, and she knows it's reality. She knows.
That's what I
And
was going to say. Something
because
to
she
them.
wants to stay in her job, she doesn't
Silent.
have anything to say.
Mhm.
She just keeps quiet.
She does.
I love her like nothing else. She's my, well, you don't have favorites, but you know. I don't have anything to say because I know that she just keep quiet.
Mm.
But at
She
the end of
does
the day,
reality.
the
Yeah, she
majority
does.
of the issue when it comes to how to deal with the criminality, part of the problem is that we who look like us know they don't like us as in the police. We don't trust them because they don't like us. They
Yeah.
don't treat us favorably.
Yeah, but then you're not
And-
dealing with it at the same
You know,
time.
and so it doesn't get addressed, but there's some things that have to be addressed.
Yeah.
But like I said, I can't even talk more, you know. So next week, same
Same
subject,
subjects will come
because we need to speak then about the church,
Mm.
because I'm a Christian, so I'm going to speak about the church. And I'm going to speak about their lackadaisical, useless, nonsensical attitude
Pretend
Yeah.
youth approach.
towards youth.
Yeah.
Right?
Forget
That,
this
and the racist mentality of black churches.
Yeah.
I'm going to speak about that
Yeah.
next
And that's
week.
serious.
I'm going to speak more about SPAC Nation
Mm.
because it is good churches who have allowed the rubbish of SPAC Nation to do what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said, if you read my original post, I said I was vexed.
Yeah,
And
you
that's
did.
why I'm coming with this line. I'm still vexed now and I can't talk more.
Yeah.
So see you all next week. Thank you for your time. God bless.
Oh.
No, man. And you know,
Bless you.